Welcome, everybody. It is Thursday, March 9th. I am John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, our show that is nightly Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., coming to you live from Washington, D.C. I cover the nightly news from Ukraine, give you my analysis, and then we spend the last half of the show taking your guys' questions. Let me get TikTok rolling right here, and then keep in mind we wait about 2 or 3 minutes for the TikTokers to arrive and the YouTubers to arrive. And then we get rolling. So for the next couple minutes, introduce yourselves if you would. And if you're watching this on recording, you can zoom ahead probably 3 minutes, you'll see, and then we'll start talking about the news. So, all right. Lots of news today, including some breaking news I'm going to talk about that somebody's probably going to put in the comments, but I'm ahead of you. I already know about it. So we will see. Hello, TikTokers. Oop, still waiting for there we go. There come the TikTokers. Excellent. Woo! Very interesting. Oh, funny. I didn't even realize it did that. It gave a little welcome message from me on TikTok, and I was like, who wrote that? It was me. Oh, anyway, how's everybody doing? Thursday, adjusting my lighting as we speak. Not too much going on here. Busy work day for me, but otherwise, took the dog out to the park. Very exciting. Yep. Introduce yourselves. Just say where you're from, if you would. I'm having a little tea. I'm trying my Earl Grey today, which I had no idea Earl Grey was this floral of a tea. You know, who knows? Our Captain Picard. I only know Earl. Well, I knew of Earl Grey before Captain Picard, but never had really tried it. So, anywho, we'll go a good minute. I think. Still waiting for folks to come in from TikTok and YouTube. As you guys know, the services basically notify folks once I go online. So it basically takes a minute or two. And I like to get at least a critical mass of folks. Thank you. Who is that? Louis for the Gamer Cat. But yeah, I like to get sort of a critical mass of folks before we start. A decent number, because otherwise I'm repeating myself and, Anyway, all right, another half-minute max and we will begin, guys. Just like I said, waiting for folks to arrive. Lots of news today. Lots of news, including some breaking news that I'm going to talk to. I'm not seeing anybody posting the breaking news. I'm very intrigued. Usually you guys are the ones jumping on me with this stuff. Thank you for the hat there, Harold. And who's the Purnell with the boxing garb? Thank you. Ooh. Oh boy. Who was that? No, Addie with the Gamer Rose. All right, guys, I'm going to get rolling here. Welcome. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It is my nightly show I do Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. from Washington, D.C., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. For everybody not familiar, basically, we spend the first half of the show or so talking about the news. I try to give you guys the top stories of the day, mostly new Ukraine, but sometimes breaking news. We do have some breaking news tonight. And then the second half of the show, I take your questions or your comments. Either way are accepted. I've got my setup here with my laptop and my iPad. On my iPad, I've got TikTok. Hello, TikTokers. You guys can submit questions via the Q&A link that is in my profile. Some of you have the Q&A link on the bottom of the screen. Maybe that works too. TikTok keeps changing it, so we don't really know. But give it a try. And the rest of you over there can use the comment box at the bottom of your guys' screen. I do appreciate your gifts because I am doing this for free. I've been doing it since the war broke out. I just decided to devote my time to doing this because I figured I'd be able to find a way to basically make some, pay my bills. And you guys have been very helpful with that. So thank you. Nobody else is paying me. It's you guys that make this possible. So please do keep the gifts coming and thank you. So let me jump right in. So I was going to start with Ukraine, of course. We're also going to talk a little bit about Georgia. There's an update about the country of Georgia in Europe. Thank you there, Big Gator Girl, and the protests, the pro-democracy protests there. But there was just breaking news from the New York Times that Donald Trump appears to be about to be indicted in the Stormy Daniels case. As you know, there are a number of different investigations going on of Trump. Some of them revolve around the January 6th insurrection. One of the other big ones is in Georgia, where Trump had called, I'm trying to remember whether it was the governor. It wasn't the governor. It was like the top state election official, and was basically leaning on him to find another 11,000 and some votes. But this one is the Stormy Daniels case, where Trump basically paid $130,000 in hush money which isn't necessarily illegal. Thank you, Nurse Boyer, for that. Which is not necessarily illegal, by the way, but paid $130,000 in hush money to Stormy Daniels, who is she's a prostitute, and she a porn star, and she hired Trump, or Trump hired her, and they had sex and he paid. So he was paying her money to be quiet. Thank you, sail away. I shouldn't say she's a prostitute. She's a porn star, but she sleeps with rich men and gets paid. So you do the math. In any case, Trump was being investigated for this. It's a very complicated legal theory that they're going after here, that basically it was an illegal contribution to Trump's campaign by hiding the story. I'm not actually convinced that legal theory is going to hold up. There's a lot of concerns I've got about Trump's hush money and all of that, but the idea that it's an illegal contribution to his campaign, I don't know. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not convinced. Having said that, the prosecutors contacted Trump recently and gave him a deadline. This is according to the New York Times right now. Gave him a deadline of next week to appear before a Manhattan grand jury if he wishes to testify. He does not have to, but typically that is a strong indication that you are about to be indicted when they call you and say, hey, you might just want to testify by next week. It means after next week, we're going to indict you. So let's see what happens. Again, as I said, this story is just breaking. There will be a lot of news on this coming, but it's confusing. Yes, Trump, I believe he used campaign funds. He misreported it. He claimed that it was a campaign expense, but it was actually an expense to his porn star lover to hush her up. And because it was campaign money and it was a campaign filing, because he had to file the how your campaign money is spent with the federal government, and lied in that filing by claiming this was a campaign expense, but it was actually a paying my porn star lover expense. That potentially is that I think on its own is potentially a low level misdemeanor, but also it could be a felony if it was an illegal contribution to his campaign. And that's the one that I'm not convinced on. In any case, I do not want to have today become a big discussion about Donald Trump, but nonetheless, it was the breaking news that literally came up about 10 minutes before the show. I thought you guys would want to know. Let's jump into Ukraine, okay? So Russia targeted Ukraine last night with around 81 missiles, including 6 hypersonic missiles. They attacked 10 regions in Ukraine, and the Russians claimed that it was actually one of the biggest attacks that they've done, and certainly the biggest they've done in months. The Russians claimed this was in retaliation for an attack that happened last week in the Russian region of Bryansk that appears to have been coordinated by pro-Ukrainian Russians, or at least Russians who are against the war. And Ukraine may or may not have had a hand in it. Putin's pissed because the Russians, Putin's trying to pretend like this war isn't a big deal, right? Well, at the same time, this is the funny part. Thank you for the Affleck duck there. Who was that? Nurse Boyer, thank you. At the same time that Putin is trying to pretend like, the war's not a big deal, it's really easy, he's then telling the Russian people this is an existential threat, and if we don't, destroy Ukraine, Russia's existence is dependent on it. In any case, the Russians get very upset whenever the Ukrainians manage to basically attack within Russia. So this is in retaliation for that attack last week within Russia. Now, I will tell you a little bit more about the hypersonic missiles because I think it's interesting. The missiles travel up to 10 times the speed of sound. That is around 8,000 miles per hour or 12,874 kilometers per hour. The missiles are typically carried by MiG-31K fighter jets and can hit targets that are 1,250 miles away. Moscow is thought to have 42 of these missiles. They used 6 last night. That means over 10% of their missiles they used. I do think that the fact that it's been months since Russia's done this big a barrage of missile attacks means they don't have that many missiles. If you think about it, why wouldn't Russia be doing this all the time? I mean, saying, it's revenge for our attack, the attack you did on Bryansk. I mean, a small group of Russians crossed the border, we think, and maybe had the backing of the Ukrainians and caused a little bit of hell in a small town across the border or something, right? I mean, give me a break. That's now we're raising the war to a whole new level and we're going to blow the hell out of Ukraine. Russia would be blowing the hell out of Ukraine every night if they had the weapons to. They don't have the weapons to. So for me, at least, that's one lesson to take away here. At least 9 people have been killed. There you go. Nothing new to tell you other than it was a big attack. It was against Ukrainian infrastructure, against the electrical infrastructure. Again, a lot of the power went out, but in the end, the Ukrainians were able to get it back on. Specifically, the power did go out to the Zaporizhia nuclear plant again. You will remember that that's the nuclear plant we talk about a lot, that there's been a lot of concern about the Russians basically. I think the Russians are trying to blow it up, to be honest. Zaporizhia nuclear plant, okay, it's the region of Zaporizhia. The way Ukraine does the regions, maybe Russia does this too, but the regions or the states have the same name as the capital of the region. So you've got the Zaporizhia region and the city of Zaporizhia, the Kherson region, the city of Kherson, right? Kharkiv region, city of Kharkiv. So this is the city of Zaporizhia, but the Zaporizhia region is more or less here where my fingers are, and the nuclear plant is at the top, south of the river, right at the top here. So right across the river from Nikopol is the nuclear plant. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of concern because the Russians keep hitting near the nuclear plant. Today, it looks like the missile attack did not hit the nuclear plant, but it did hit infrastructure associated with the plant so that it cut the power to the plant. All 20 backup generators had to kick in to keep the plant going. Now, the idea there, thank you, Deborah Fletcher, for the chef's kiss. The idea there is a couple different things here. One, the concern isn't that Russia is going to blow up the plant by attacking the plant directly. Okay, that's not going to happen. Thank you, Panya. These plants are hardened so that supposedly even a 747 could attack it straight on and the plant wouldn't blow up. Okay, thank you, Elle, for that. The bigger concern is cutting off the power to the plant, particularly cutting off the power to the coolant system of the plant so that the plant melts down and there's a nuclear meltdown, which basically means the nuclear material overheats. And there's basically, I mean, I'm not a nuclear expert, but I read enough to be able to explain this. It's using water to cool down the nuclear elements in the plant. If the power shuts off, the water supply stops circulating and the fuel rods overheat. Well, if they get too hot, which they will on their own, because it's a nuclear reaction, right, going on. If they overheat, they melt down and they explode. And that can throw a lot of nuclear material into the air, but also an actual China syndrome nuclear meltdown is that the material can then go into the earth, hit a waterbed, and then you've got real problems, right? Because then you've got it's transmitted in the water, but also throwing that nuclear steam up. It's a disaster. This is in many ways what happened with I'm forgetting the name of it already. Shoot, the nuclear plant in Japan. You guys know this, the one that was in northern Japan that got knocked out by the tsunami. The tsunami came, knocked out power to the plant, and I'm pretty sure it was the lack of coolant. Fukushima, thank you, me and you, Ukraine. It was from Fukushima that it knocked out the power, and that caused the meltdown. So this is a big deal. Now, I was reading today the 20, so they've got 20 backup generators that I think use diesel fuel. They need 6. How many generators? I think it's 8 generators at a time they need 8 generators to keep the plant going, but they've got backup generators because it's a nuclear plant. There is enough of generators for 10 days. The power did go back on again, so they're okay right now. But the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is a UN body that oversees these kind of things internationally, was apoplectic today. This guy lost his cool today and basically said, this is the 6th time he said, this is the 6th time this has happened. 6! And he kind of yelled 6 again. And the world is doing nothing about it. The problem is, what can the world do about it? Because I think what you've got going on here is the Russians are trying to blow up that plant. The Russians are the Russians are committing an act of nuclear terrorism here. They're trying to blow up the plant. They're at the very least trying to almost blow up the plant. Okay, almost blow it up. Oh, okay. B. Smith, I didn't see that. You got me lost with I thought it was a super sticker. Thank you. I'll get that in a second. Um, they're at the very least trying to threaten to blow it up. They're trying to scare the world into thinking, oh my God, this plant almost blew up again, right? And someday maybe it will if this war keeps going, right? Oh, oh, thank you. That's a very nice one. Thank you, Magic. Magic Carp fan? That was really nice. Thank you. That's a very nice gift. I think they're trying to wear us down. They're trying to wear you down. They're trying to wear Biden and Macron and Schultz in Germany down by basically constantly having this nuclear threat come up. Because basically it's the idea that if the war goes on, and actually the head of the IAEA even said this. He goes, one of these times we're not going to be so lucky. And then, meaning one of these times we're going to have a nuclear meltdown. Well, Putin loves that. I mean, all credit to the director of the IAEA. He's correct. But Putin loves that messaging. Putin wants us to be saying, one of these days, if the war continues, there's going to be a nuclear meltdown at the largest, mind you, the largest nuclear plant in Europe is this one in Ukraine, in Zaporizhia. So this is nuclear terrorism from the Russians, unfortunately. I mean, it's we're dealing with some really awful people here. I mean, it's bad. B. Smith has a question or a comment. If the Zaporizhia nuclear plant ever melted down because of the Russians, would NATO respond in the same way as Russia launching a nuke into Ukraine? Isn't that the question? I think who knows, but there's multiple parts to that question. First of all, well, you got a couple different parts here. With a nuclear weapon, I guess very similar to a nuclear weapon being used, okay, in Ukraine, there is, first of all, the possibility of that radiation going to a NATO country, whether it's, and again, handy dandy map, right? You've got Turkey down here, NATO country. You've got Romania down here, NATO country. You've got, Romania's a lot of this. I always forget what's where, but you've got Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, all of which are NATO countries, right? So, if it happens here, what I had seen in about a year ago when we were worrying about this, but Moldova isn't NATO though, right? No, correct me here. Moldova's not a NATO country. No. Yeah, Moldova's not a NATO country because they're not EU either. What they were showing was that if a meltdown happened here at the plant, it was, at least at the time, it was expected that it would go this way, south to a degree, but mostly this way, so that ironically it would hit Ukraine. It would hit the area of Ukraine that Russia claims as Russian, but it would also hit Russia itself. What NATO does is an interesting question because, first of all, and there's kind of a beauty to it, Russia, like today, Russia didn't attack the plant today. Russia attacked infrastructure across Ukraine, and oops, they happened to hit some of the electrical generators or the infrastructure that was supplying power to the plant. Oh my God, what a mistake, right? Russia still, to a degree, has plausible deniability. It's not like Russia actually targeted the plant. I mean, they did, of course. We know, considering how many times this has happened, that this wasn't a mistake on Russia's part. But nonetheless, blowing up a nuke itself, there ain't no way that was a mistake, right? Whereas in this case, Russia's able to sort of say, oh, that we didn't do that on purpose. They're going to say it was the Ukrainians. Then we've got a situation where, by the way, who did it? I mean, it was, I don't even know, for example, do we have proof that it was the Russians who blew up that plant near the nuclear plant today? I mean, do we have proof? I mean, we all know it was the Russians. It wasn't the Ukrainians, but that becomes an issue too. if we were to literally raise this to the level of getting involved in the war like that, like entering the war, we would have to have absolute proof that it was even though we know it was the Russians, proof that we could show publicly that the Russians did it. And then I think we would need proof that the Russians did it on purpose, that they wanted the plant to melt down. I worry that our response would be less bad than a nuclear bomb. Yes, I think it would be. I still think we would potentially go nuts on them. Hopefully we would give Ukraine better weapons and all of that, but I don't know. Let me go on. Georgia. Let's talk just a little bit about Georgia, which is the former Soviet republic, European republic that's been having protests the last 3 days, or big protests the last 3 days. The protest, I think, started about a week or two ago. There were some developments today, possibly very positive, but be careful. This is not initially, I think everyone saw these developments and thought, yay, everything's solved. Everything may not be solved. So, sorry, quick sip of tea and we continue. So what's been going on is, the last 3 days, there have been massive sort of pro-democracy protests, I would call them, in Georgia. Thank you, Perfect Harmony, for the cat. And again, the Georgians sort of hate it when we say former Soviet, because it's been 30 years ago that they were part of the Soviet Union. But if I keep saying Georgia just on its own, somebody arriving thinks I'm talking about protests in Georgia, which means the American state is just south of me. Thank you, GamerCat, for that. So what happened was, the government it leans towards Russia, okay? But at the same time, the government claims it wants to join the European Union. It wants Georgia to join. Applies to the European Union last year, right after Russia invades Ukraine, and the European Union turned it down. They told, and the assumption is that it was because the Georgian government, which is becoming a little more authoritarian. Thank you, Tom Clark, for the confetti. Is becoming a little more authoritarian. Is backsliding on democracy, and the EU was like, if you're backsliding on democracy, we're not even going to make you a candidate to join Georgia, even though a lot of the population wants to join Georgia. The government then tries to pass a law recently that would require any business or organization that gets more than 20% of its funding from abroad to register as a foreign agent, which kind of sort of makes it sound like you're declaring that you're a foreign spy. This is a Russian law that has been used in Russia since 2012. It has been used to demonize civil society groups, basically meaning, I would say charities, but not just charities, NGOs, civil rights groups, disability rights groups, environmental groups, right? Imagine those, the local, like the Red Cross. I mean, imagine, these kind of, in America, we would say nonprofit organizations, right? So these kind of groups that try to do good. Well, a country like Georgia isn't that rich. I think the population, am I wrong, or did I see that the population of Georgia was like 5 million? Could it be that small? Hey, Google, what's the population of Georgia? It's going to tell me the other Georgia. It's going to be the wrong Georgia. Hey, Google, what's the population of the country of Georgia? In 2021, the population of Georgia was 3.7 million. It's even fewer than I thought. Okay. I remembered. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everyone throwing it on TikTok there. I remember it being smaller than I thought. I was thinking 5 million, 3.7 million, right? Not a big country, not a particularly rich country. So there isn't a lot of money available to fund these groups, either from the government or by appealing to the public. And basically, these guys have to get money from organizations internationally that support good pro-democracy movements around the world. There are a lot of them here in the US and Europe. And the law was written in a way where potentially even organizations that crowdfund online and get over 20% of their money from donations from the public like you would have to declare themselves to be foreign agents. And the fine, if they don't, is apparently so significant that it would be enough to shut down most organizations. It would be so expensive. Now, imagine the fundraising we've done for Ukraine. Okay. Imagine I think of not just what we've done, but I've seen people raising money for animal welfare groups in particular in Ukraine, right? That a lot of us chipped in. I've chipped in before for for groups that rescue animals and that kind of stuff. Those guys are so small and have such a small budget. It would be easy for them to get more than 20% just from what happened in the last year, right? More than 20% of their budget come from international funds. That could be enough to trigger this law, and they've got to declare themselves to be foreign agents. Anyway, so bottom line is people freaked out. They got pissed. This would also affect newspapers. They got very pissed and they turned to the streets. The protests became violent in the last couple of days. I mean, the government became violent and then the protesters became violent. Finally, Oh, and sorry. And the protesters were also upset. Thank you for the hat there, Zoe. The protesters were also upset because they were concerned that even though they got turned down by the European Union last year, they still want to join the EU. They were concerned that this would be another strike against them by the EU that would see this as one more step along the sort of undemocratic path for Georgia. And in fact, the European Union came out yesterday and said, yes, this law is incompatible with European Union principles. So anyway, fast forward to today, third day of the protests. The government now says it's going to withdraw the law. It's just announced actually a couple hours ago that they're going to hold a legislative meeting tomorrow of the legislature at noon tomorrow. Thank you, Robert Lay, for that. At noon tomorrow, where they are going to vote on I don't know if it's rescinding the law or what word I'm looking for here, but basically tabling the law at noon tomorrow. The protesters have also asked for all the protesters to be released. They have been released, but the charges have not yet been dropped against them. So they want the charges dropped, of course. And there is lingering concern that even though the government may tomorrow postpone the law, postpone passage of the law, that they may not be backing down from actually passing the law. The government, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but I read it earlier today, and the government gave a quote that was basically, we want to give people a chance to calm down, and when they calm down, then we want a chance to explain to them why this foreign transparency law is so important. That sounds like the government saying, we want to basically defuse the protesters. Then we're going to move ahead with the law, but first we're going to explain it to you, right? That's not backing down. If you're a protester, you really don't know. Yes, you could potentially start the protests again if the government tries to do it again. The problem is, any of you who've been involved in political activism know, any of you who don't, I will tell you, because I have in my 30 plus years in politics, it's not easy to get people into the streets like they did in Georgia in the last few days. It's not easy at all. The fact that people did now doesn't mean they will in 6 months. What if the government decides to wait until December when it's, I don't know, hey Google, what's the average temperature in Tbilisi, Georgia in December? Oh, Google's stupid. Google drives me nuts because sometimes it's good and other times it's just really bad. In any case, I'm going to guess it's freezing in Tbilisi. You're going to have a lot fewer people turning out in the middle of winter than you would necessarily right now when it's spring, even if it's warmer right now. I've got Alexa too, but she's in the other room. So I know I always activate people's Google when I do this. Did anybody's Google answer, or did every Google give the same stupid answer mine gave? I don't have any answer to that right now. As if, I love that too, as if you're going to, have an answer in a few hours or something. In any case, the point is, just because you were able to activate people today to turn into the streets doesn't mean in 3 months and 6 months, you'll be just as lucky. There's a magic to politics and a magic to political organizing. Sometimes people get excited. You know this if you've seen issues you care about. Sometimes an issue just blows up in the news and becomes huge. Other times, people think about, we always joke, well, we don't joke about it, but you know what I mean, that the blonde woman in the Caribbean who's lost, who falls off the boat and goes missing or whatever. It's always a blonde woman. And people say, why is it never a black woman or a whatever woman? There's just, okay. There's racism involved, yes. But my point there is you never quite know what story is going to explode. And therefore, you never know what story is going to cause a movement to explode and people to turn into the streets. And the government basically wants to defuse it now. And in 6 months, if they do it again, well, the organizers have to start all over again. And by the way, maybe the government will throw some people in jail in the meantime, too. So that's what's up in Georgia. We do hope that tomorrow the law at least gets pulled for now, but it looks like, at least so far, cross our fingers, a positive movement in the former Soviet state of Georgia. Ukraine's main, actually, hold on a second. I was going to tell you, yeah. Okay, there we go. Let me tell you about my Discord really quick. God, I'm already halfway into the show. Every show this is happening, we're having so much interesting news that I'm going, okay, I'm going to go long again tonight. We went long yesterday. It means forsaking my Discord, because we do like to go to the Discord and talk afterwards. But it's been The law isn't officially being pulled until tomorrow, actually. Sorry, somebody was saying the law was pulled. There's a meeting tomorrow of the Georgian parliament at noon tomorrow, and that's where they will officially vote to pull the law. So we'll see, but probably. Google, unless it was noon today, I don't think so. Unless it was noon today, guys, I'm telling you, Google it. In any case, so one of the ways that I try to sort of keep my show going is we've got a Discord, as I was just saying. Normally, I'll go on the Discord and hang out afterwards with you guys. But tonight, I can tell there's already enough news that we're going to go late. So I'd rather just go late with the news, go late with the questions, and then maybe call it quits. So we'll go another 45 minutes, maybe even an hour if we go. So don't worry, I'll get to your guys' questions. But one of the things I like to do is we have a Discord that's kind of a neat community where we can sort of keep the discussion going. Thank you for the gift there, Louis. And one of the things that I like about my Discord is it's frankly also a way for me to support my show, but also to support Ukraine. We have been doing fundraisers on my Discord by basically auctions. We've been doing auctions to make money for Ukraine and to pay my bills, because I am doing this full time. And I've been doing it full time since the war broke out, doing the show and just reporting the news on TikTok, mostly on TikTok about Ukraine. And no one's paying my bill. No one's paying me to do it. You guys are the ones paying me to do it. So thank you, by the way. I was going to say, like the gifts on TikTok, like Inspired Woman just did, or the super chat questions, but also with our auctions, we've been auctioning off a lot of cool stuff from Ukraine. Half the profits from, at least from the Ukrainian stuff on my auction, half the profits have been going back to Ukraine, half support my work. Right now, we've got the Zelensky sweatshirt, which I will just show you again really quick. Sorry, guys, you got to pay the bills here, so I got to show this stuff. Thank you, Purnell. This is the sweatshirt that Zelensky has. Actually, he's wearing it again today. If you look at the pictures in the news, he was wearing it all over the place today. But this is the sweatshirt that Zelensky wore. It's the same company and the same brand. I mean, it's not the one he had on his body, of course, but it's the shirt that Zelensky wore when he visited the U.S., that he was at the White House with. He did a speech to the joint session of Congress. Thank you, Chuck, for the Hydros line. He also, I believe, spoke to the British Parliament in sweatshirts like that. We found the actual company and bought the actual shirts that Zelensky has, and we're auctioning those off. And the other really cool thing in this auction ends tomorrow. I went and I dug up one of my pieces of the Berlin Wall that I broke off when I was in East Germany. I did go to East Germany too, but I was in West Berlin and West Germany back in December 3rd of 1989, which was just about 3 weeks after the wall came down. It didn't come down, but the Berlin Wall came down metaphorically. I don't want to go through the whole history, but for anybody who's too young to remember, basically, the Soviets helped us in World War II. And then after World War II, they kidnapped half of Europe. They basically kept their troops in half of Europe, put communist governments in charge, dictatorships. Thank you, Harold. And for about 45 years, half of Europe was stuck in horrifically brutal dictatorships because of the Soviets and the Russians. Long story short, Berlin, people were crossing from East Germany to West Germany. Germany was cut in half at the time. There were two Germanys, East Germany, West Germany. People were cutting across. So to stop it, they put a wall up around Berlin, and that's the Berlin Wall. They became a very famous symbol of the Eastern Bloc, of the Soviet bloc of dictatorial countries that people were literally, it was horrific dictatorships. Horrific. So in any case, the wall came down. The government finally, because there were protests, 1989, huge year, by the way. If you ever want to Google the history, Wikipedia will have really cool stuff, obviously. Thank you, Alan, for that. Wikipedia will have a nice background on it. But basically, 1989 was the year that, if not most of the Eastern European dictatorships the Soviet dictatorships came crumbling down. I know Romania, to me, was the most famous because Romania happened on Christmas Day, December 25th. And the people rose up and executed Ceausescu and his wife, who were, two of the worst, if not the worst dictators of the era in Europe. They were horrific. And the people rose up and shot them to death against a wall. The walls may still be there, but there's video of it. It's really pretty graphic, but hey, these guys were dictators. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I find this history of Eastern Europe so fascinating. So December of 1989 was around 2 or 3 weeks after the East German government, there were so many protests. The East German government read the writing on the wall and finally said, okay, we can't stop what's coming. Clearly, our people want to leave East Germany. They want to at least go to the West to see their family, if not leave entirely. So the East German government finally said, okay, early November, we will open up the border and you can go back and forth. I mean, these were two different countries at this point, right? One communist, one free West Germany. And people started going back and forth. Well, then people started going up to the Berlin Wall, which were concrete. I mean, I think it's 160 miles or something, huge wall, concrete wall. So made of like sidewalk material. Okay. But standing straight up. I remember these things. They must have been 12 feet tall or something. I mean, a ridiculously tall wall. And they had spray painted it all over the West German side. People were going up and with hammers and chisels, starting to chisel away at the wall and take chunks of it to basically bring it down themselves. Well, at the point I went, around 2.5, 3 weeks in, the West German government was still telling us, don't do this. It could be dangerous. Because the problem was the East German guards were still with their machine guns on top of the wall. They were still patrolling back and forth, looking down at us with their machine guns, the communist East German soldiers. But fortunately, they were the ones, I mean, we met. I mean, I've met some, they were friendly, which is good. But the East German government was still very freaked out because it wasn't, the situation was still very tense. Any case, long story short, I got a lot of really cool pieces of the wall, and this was an extra one that I had that still has color on it up here. It's a small bit of black. That's the color from the wall. Lots of provenance. I mean, I've got proof out the wazoo because I was there with a congressional delegation. We were a U.S. Senate arms control delegation that I was part of when I worked in the U.S. Senate. So, and I've got photos. Anyway, the whole deal. So I'm auctioning off that last piece that I've got of the wall. The other pieces I'm keeping. I was alive back then, Timothy. Yes. And I even had a real job back then. So I know I'm a little older. What do you do? All right, guys, let's go back to the show. So anyway, you can find my Discord where we're auctioning all that stuff off by discord.aravosis.com. The easiest way to find it is for you guys on TikTok. Just go to my profile, look at the Linktree link, click it, and you've got all my links there. For the rest of you on YouTube and Twitch and everywhere else, just go to aravosis.com, that link at the bottom, and it'll take you there. All right. Zelensky. Oh, yeah. So Zelensky's office says today, Ukraine may receive security guarantees at the next NATO summit. There will definitely be security guarantees. We no longer hear no when we speak up about them. Now the question is, who will be the first to sign them with us, said a spokesman, the head of the Ukrainian presidential office. Here's the problem I've got with that. What do security guarantees matter? I mean, Ukraine had security guarantees. We've talked about it before. People always ask about it, but this Budapest Memorandum was an agreement in the early 1990s, 1994, I believe, where Ukraine agreed to give up its nuclear weapons. Ukraine had nukes because when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, thank you, ASMR James. I appreciate that. When the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, its nukes were spread all over because Russia was only one country even though Russia wants you to think they were the only one. Like when it comes to World War II, Russia goes, we beat the Nazis. Well, no, the Ukrainians were 25% of the Russian military. They beat the Nazis too, as did a lot of other Soviet troops from all the other countries, right? So, give me a break. In any case, the problem is Ukraine gave up its nukes, and in exchange, guess what? We gave them security guarantees, as did the Russians themselves, but so did the Brits, the Americans, and I believe the French. Well, fast forward to 2014, Russia invades. Russia steals the southern Ukrainian province of Crimea down here and makes it part of Russia. Even though no one recognizes it, Russians claim this is Russia now. What does the world do? Absolutely nothing. Russia then invades last year. They're now holding a total of 18% of Ukrainian territory. The world did step up. We've been providing a lot of weapons, but we're not really giving Ukraine all the weapons it needs. You guys know this, right? It's taken us a very long time. Each weapon we talk about giving, we have to kind of we're like that Catholic sect in, was it Opus Dei or whatever? And like the the Da Vinci factor where the guy's got to beat himself. We've got to like beat ourselves with palm fronds every time we want to give Ukraine a weapon and go, no, the West is bad. We can't give Ukraine weapons. It would make Putin angry. You know what I mean? It's like, give me a break. So long story short is I think it's BS for us to be talking about giving Ukraine security guarantees. There are no security guarantees short of NATO membership. There's none. There's none. We would have to have a treaty with Ukraine where we literally said, if Russia invades again, we will treat it as an invasion of America or France or Germany or whoever, UK, and it would be an act of war against all of us. Well, that is the NATO charter. Ain't nobody that's going to be letting Ukraine into NATO anytime soon. I wish we would, but that's not going to happen. So I think this whole idea of security guarantees is BS. Here's the problem too with security guarantees. If we're so afraid of engaging with Russia, right? Even think about it. Even some of you, who maybe worry about it, right? Russia's got nukes. We don't want to have a nuclear war with Russia. We've got to be careful, right? Thank you, Gideon. Biden himself has said repeatedly, we can't directly engage Russian troops because if we get into a war with Russia directly, it'll be World War III. Biden has said that repeatedly, right? And World War III, in American English at least, probably English too, as we call it, English is what we call your guys' version. American English, World War III is a synonym for the end of the world, nuclear war and a nuclear holocaust and the end of the world. Well, if it per se will lead to a nuclear holocaust and the end of the world if we go to war against Russia now, why would that not happen in 10 years if we've got a security guarantee with Ukraine and Russia invades again? It's still Russia. They've still got nukes. Proper English, that's cute. They've still, although Callum's from Scotland, so, when he says proper English, take it with a grain of salt, a grain of haggis. Thank you for the butterflies there, Nathan. But you know what I mean? If we are afraid of what weapons we give Ukraine because we are deathly afraid of going to war with Russia, because if we go to war with Russia, it means nuclear war, then what does a security guarantee actually mean? Because we're not going to war with Russia in 10 years because they've still got nukes and it still means the end of the world. So what guarantee would we give Ukraine? We're going to give you more weapons, except, mind you, in 10 years, we'll have the same problem we have today. We'll give Ukraine weapons, but there's some weapons we don't want to give Ukraine because we don't want to make Putin mad. Why would we not want to make Putin mad in 10 years as well, right? Today, we're worried, if we give Ukraine too good of weapons, if we help Ukraine too much, the Russians will get mad and use their nukes. Well, the same thing stands true in 10 years. I don't believe it. But if you believe that, the same logic applies in 10 years. So why would we help Ukraine any more with the security guarantee than we are already helping them today? We won't. The security guarantee is utter BS. It just bothers me because it's just not a way of solving the problem. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate warned today of a possible Russian false flag operation on the Ukrainian-Belarusian border. Belarus is a country. Okay, Ukraine, Russia. I mean, Russia goes everywhere else too, but Russia up here. Russia is here and growing. Belarus is here. Poland's over here. Belarus is an ally of Russia in the war. They have not invaded directly themselves, but they've allowed the Russians to invade Belarus and basically come through Belarus and attack Ukraine, kill Ukrainians, attack Ukrainians from Belarus. The Ukrainians warn that in the next few days, they've got intelligence or whatever, that the Russians may be planning a false flag operation, basically meaning they're going to, Russian troops will do some kind of a fake provocation along the border between the two countries and blame it on the Ukrainians. One of the concerns was that they might go after infrastructure. So again, going after a Belarusian power plant or something else, water, something like that. And that the goal was to not just blow up the facility, but to make sure they killed Belarusian civilians so that they could then turn around and go, aha, look what the Ukrainians did, when in fact it was Russian troops secretly operating and blowing it up. That's what a false flag is. When you basically do it yourself, but you claim it was somebody else. So just keep an eye on that, but that's a concern. Boy, there's so much news today. Sorry, I'm looking at this. I'm just looking really quick. Polish MiGs. Okay, bottom line, looked more into the Polish MiG story. Poland has clearly said it is ready to give MiG fighter jets to Ukraine. Poland has not said they're coming. They ain't coming. They're potentially coming. You have a lot of sloppy journalists out there. I went and finally read all the Polish government statements themselves. And these statements from the Polish government are, we are ready, literally, we are ready to give them weapons. And then today, another government minister said the number of weapons we're ready to give them is a lower number, not a higher number. And I don't even remember if he gave an actual, let me see today. He said it'll be a small number. But again, he didn't say they're definitely coming. He said, we definitely want to give them. And I will remind you, thank you, Woodworker, for the sunglasses. I will remind you that a year ago, almost exactly, I think it was April of last year, Poland wanted to give, they were ready to give Ukraine, God, at that point, it might have been almost 200 MiG fighter jets or something like that. And US and Germany went, and Poland was afraid to do it without it going through the US and Germany, but US and Germany said, we're not touching it. So I'm just saying, wonderful for Poland to offer, which is great. That's great. But read these stories carefully. You've got to be very careful when you read these stories. Thank you, Hazel, for that, because they're not coming yet. Poland's defense minister today confirmed that more Leopard 2 tanks have been delivered to Ukraine. That's great news, too. I've got a big section that I don't want to go through all of it, but basically, let me skip it for now. You know what? I'll bring this one up tomorrow. I've got a section here that's sort of timeless. The thing I was going to end on, which was kind of funny, is I've got two sections I'll leave for tomorrow. But what I was going to end on is that the Latvians, who have already given a lot of aid to Ukraine, have seized the cars of drunk drivers. I was going to talk about JDAM, but we're going to talk about it tomorrow because I've got a whole section about it. They've seized the cars of drunk drivers and have delivered them to Ukraine so the Ukrainians can use them. They took away the drunk drivers' cars and gave them to the Ukrainians. And I was reading about it, and apparently the Ukrainians can use them because they would be used to send supplies back and forth. And hi, Marta. Thank you for your guys. Well, hopefully, thank you not for your car, we hope, but thank you for the cars from your country. But the Ukrainians can actually use the cars to send supplies back and forth and everything else. So, but kind of a funny, but maybe not funny story. Nice story. All right, let's go and do the questions. A reminder that I have a Patreon as well. It's patreon.com/Aravosis on YouTube. And you all guys, you can see it at the bottom of the screen. For you guys, you can just go to patreon.com/my last name, Aravosis, or you can go to the link in my profile, the link tree link on TikTok, click it, and one of the options shows my Patreon. Patreon's a really neat way to support creators by basically giving $5, $10, $20 a month. But it's a nice way to give an ongoing support so that people like me actually know how much money's coming in so we can pay our bills. And as I've said before, I do this for free. I've started doing it when the war broke out. So I've been doing this for over a year now. And somebody's got to pay the bills because I've just decided I want to do this. And you guys have been very generous. So thank you. Please, by the way, keep the gifts coming because, again, quite literally, you help me pay the bills and you help me keep doing this. So thank you. All right. Let's do questions. And as I said, we can talk about some of the other interesting issues I had tomorrow because they're not timely. They can hold till tomorrow. And I'll go, as always, since this went long today, I'll go late. So we'll go probably a good 25 minutes, half hour of questions. Thank you for the gift there, Magical. Oh, was it Magical Photo and Evolving? Thank you both. On TikTok, you can submit your questions via the Q&A link that is in my profile or possibly at the bottom of your screen. TikTok brought that back for some people. It should work. Let's see. TikTok's kind of funny this way. And the rest of you can use the link at the bottom of your screen, just the comment box, not the link, the comment box, or certainly you can always do, what do you call it? Super chat and super stickers as well. So here we go. Question time. Exactly. Let me put on my glasses and I will start with some TikTok questions. Thank you, Lil Hawk, for the hat and mustache. TikTok. Actually, you know what I'd asked too? Let me check here. Somebody who's got the actual link on the bottom of their screen in the TikTok, if you've got the link in the bottom of the screen that says Q&A, maybe not all of you, because I'm going to get like 100 of them now. Put something in, click the thing that says Q&A at the bottom, and just thank you, Riverside, for the boat there. I always like the call. That's a new one, I think. That's very cool. just click the Q&A link and just say, I'm using the Q&A link to write this, because that way I will know if it's coming into where I think it's coming into. Because currently I access the questions that come in via the, oh, interesting. Oh, look what it's doing. It's throwing it up as a different, how weird. Okay, let me just see if I can pull up. No, I can't pull up. Is it this thing? I'm trying to pull up where these questions might. I'm seeing the questions scroll down on the screen, but I don't know. Text poll, quick poll, draw and guess. Sorry, TikTok had changed a lot of stuff, so I'm trying to see here. Oh, TikTok, why do you forsake me? Sorry, that was a. Oh, hello. Thank you for the boat there. Yeah, I don't think there's a way for me to access this. God, they piss me. They get so close sometimes and then so far. Comment settings, no. Oh, TikTok, you evil little TikTok. Yeah, so it allows you guys to on the bottom, it allows you to place them. Sorry, guys, but this is important for us to figure out. So it allows you to send them, but they scroll on the screen and they don't go anywhere that I can actually pull them up. I'm looking at Interact. Interact just brings up text poll, quick poll, draw and guess. Draw words for viewers to guess. I'm going to draw the word Putin. That's it. That's it that I've got under Interact. All right. You know what? So maybe we don't use that crazy box at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Chazak, for the mariachi hat. We don't use the box at the bottom of the screen. And that was Hazel with the speedboat. Thank you, Hazel. And we'll just use it doesn't work for me. Just use I'm going to use the Q&A that's on my main screen. So here we go. All right, Q&A. TikTok, why do you have to be so difficult? Oh, well, no. Actually, you guys, some of you, okay, you know what? You're all sending me different stuff. This is crazy. I've got Street Rat. I have the Q&A link. I have to click on your circle after I click on your profile. Yeah, I think the profile is the one that works. And then Peekaboo from Orc Hunter, but it just depends how you sent it. If you sent it from my profile, we know that works. I think we have to use the Q&A in the profile. Yeah, okay. Somebody else is using, as long as you're using the Q&A link at the bottom, maybe it does work for some of you. How crazy. All right. Any case, is Ukraine involved in a psychological operation, sort of psyop warfare, such as threatening the population of Russia, or what might that be? Yeah. I don't know about threatening the population. Well, it depends what you mean. I forgot to mention this. There was another story today of another hack in Russia where it seems, at least the story was, that the Russian civil defense thing went off on the TV, literally saying, run for your lives, go to a shelter. We are under nuclear missile attack, which, very dangerous thing. Thank you, Money Gun, for Elijah there. Rather dangerous thing. I mean, as much as we don't like Russia, making people think that they're under a nuclear attack could mean some crazy person with access to a button does something stupid, right? Military guy with a button. So I worry about even though, there's a Schadenfreude in me or whatever that's kind of going, yay. It's a little dangerous. So I'm not sure I like that. Having said that, Ukraine also has been using its drones, we know, and hitting inside Russia. And part of the idea there is that they're trying to make the Russian government worried, right? So that the Russian government now has to say, oh, geez, I've got to worry about not just Ukraine being in Ukraine, but I've got to worry about whether Ukraine can hit Moscow, whether Ukraine can hit, right, all of these other cities, 50, 100, 200 miles inside of Russia now that we didn't think before the Ukrainians could hit. But with drones now they can't. So that's a psychological operation against the government. It also makes the government waste money, because now the Russian government is having to spend time and money building up its defenses in other cities like Moscow that it originally didn't think it had to. Another reason, though, is to scare the Russian people, too. So the Russian people go, did you hear? A drone almost hit Moscow. Oh, my God. So now people who live in Moscow go, oh, my God, could they hit us here? Right? So, you want, frankly, the Russian people to be, if you're Ukraine, the Ukrainians probably want the Russian people to be a little afraid. Thank you, Justin Helms. So it is a psychological operation against them too, because if they're not afraid, the war won't mean anything and they'll be less likely to sort of speak up against it. So, yeah, I think that's the case. Laka had a good question as to why does Poland need permission and cannot simply send the MiGs themselves? Oh, they can. They can. I mean, I think, okay, there's Paul Laka's. I think it's a matter of courtesy and comity, which is a nice word in English, C-O-M-I-T-Y, basically a sort of a I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Poland is part of a coalition of countries supporting Ukraine, NATO mostly, okay? And then with, some North Africa, etc. Was it Morocco and Tunisia, I think. And in order to keep those countries together, you've got to be very careful what weapons you give. If America gives weapons that everybody else doesn't like, that, France and Germany, for example, goes, okay, we're in this coalition. I mean, we support helping Ukraine, but what are you doing, America? You're going to give fighter jets? You're going to give F-16s to Ukraine? Are you crazy? Putin's going to go nuts. I'm not going to be part of this and basically start a nuclear war because you decided to give a weapon that we think is insane. So I will guarantee you that any weapons we're giving, I don't want to say that we're checking every weapon system, but we're probably checking categories of weapon systems, things like that, that we're giving the Ukrainians. Thank you, Magic, for the magical photo, for the boxing robe. So that, yeah, I mean, I think the Poles need to check with, unfortunately, they need to check with the other NATO allies before they just giving. Oh, Peter, in what way are you an expert? Oh, Peter. The only thing that's always a trick question, because as soon as you start giving your expertise, people sit there and go, you're so stuck up. Why are you bragging? Go to my LinkedIn. It's in my profile. The link is in my profile on TikTok. Click it, scroll down and check out my LinkedIn. And when you're done, come on back and then ask me what I know about foreign policy. You can do it in English or 4 other languages if you like. I'll either one, or any of the 4, any of the 5. Oh, Peter. That's one of my. I even did a video. Or go to my TikTok. Actually, the pinned video at the top of my TikTok also has a "What do I know about foreign policy?" So, all right, I don't want to be too obnoxious. So, news on Moldova. Nothing on Moldova, really. They're still trying to cause trouble by claiming that the Ukrainians were trying to assassinate the leader of Transnistria. Kind of BS. But no real news there. What else we got here, guys? I do agree we need to grow some balls and give Ukraine what they need. I would tend to agree with you. What else? Looking here, I will. I will get to the TikTok questions on TikTok as well. I'm just trying to see some of the other ones here. But anyway, yeah, Laka, it's a matter of keeping the coalition together. You don't want to start giving weapons, yeah. It's, and here's part of the problem too. Like if Poland were to give weapons that we didn't want them to give, let's say Poland gave MiG fighter jets and America was like, oh no, we can't do that because Russia's going to get upset, whatever. And then Poland turns around and says, oh, hey, America, I just got rid of 26 MiG fighter jets. I need more fighter jets. Can I buy F-15s off of you? And the U.S. goes, well, by selling you F-15s, we're enabling you to give fighter jets that we think are too dangerous to send. So now we're a party to it's a mess. Yeah, no, unfortunately, you got to ask permission. You really do. Robin Locke, I don't know why you can't see my live on TikTok. Maybe you were muted or banned by accident. If you want, why don't you post your TikTok handle in the comments here on YouTube, and one of the moderators can take a look and jump over to TikTok and see. But sometimes people get blocked, by accident and stuff. So, the Ukraine, honey. 30 years ago, we stopped calling it the Ukraine. And USA are tops on the list of most corrupt warmongering countries on the planet. I had to say planet because it's capital. It's all caps. Planet with an exclamation point in case you didn't understand that the all caps meant emphasis. Yes, well, I got news for you, buddy. We're in day 370 something of your 10-day war. How's it looking? It ain't looking too good. That's all I got to say for you, Mr. Troll. All right. What else we got? What else we got going here? Daniel, thank you, Daniel O'Neill, for the super sticker. MT History Buff is saying what they need is an expanding international peacekeeping force that starts from Western Ukraine and moves eastward under a no-fly zone, and Russian forces leave or get eliminated. I mean, I would agree with that. Part of the problem, here's the problem. The no-fly zone concept in general, we might as well talk about it again. This stuff, I've got, just to reiterate for folks, because I see somebody asking, or Andy's asking, I've got TikTok on my iPad here, and on my laptop over here, I am looking at folks on YouTube and Twitch and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, but the lion's share of the viewers are on TikTok, and then second up is YouTube over here. So I'm occasionally reading YouTube, etc. questions over here. That's why you see me looking away and reading. And for you guys, I'm reading the TikTokers looking over here. So there you go. Thank you, Bonnie, for yours as well. Sorry, MT History was saying, oh yeah, so no-fly zone. No-fly zones are interesting. We were talking about it at the beginning of the war. They're tricky. They're tricky to put into place. No-fly zone basically means we get control of the airspace, and we say, ain't nobody flying in that airspace unless we give them permission. Ukraine says, yes, America, come in, dominate the airspace over Ukraine, and make sure nobody flies over Ukraine that we don't give permission to fly. So it could be the UN, it could be just our planes, it could be NATO planes, but not Russian planes for sure. The problem is not just the enforcement of the no-fly zone in terms of saying, well, if the Russians come in by plane, we will shoot them down. No, actually, step back a second. So what MT History, who's a very smart military expert, by the way, is suggesting is we start in Western Ukraine and slowly move east. The concept is there are no the Russian troops are here, okay? This is where the Russian troops are. There are not Russian troops all the way over here. So the idea is you start in Western Ukraine where there's really not much going on other than missiles dropping, and you put a no-fly zone here, and you keep going east because there are no Russian planes, one hopes, in general over this part of Ukraine, right? So you put a no-fly zone in place, he's saying, and you just start sort of increasing the area that the Russians can never touch. And to some degree, it's an interesting idea because what you're telling the Russians is, look, we're not going to attack you. We're only going to attack you if you invade this area that we're in control of, right? Thank you, Iggy Woman, for the sail away. But if you don't, right? If you don't, for example, if you don't cross the river, we're not attacking you. So we're not starting a war. Russia would be starting a war by crossing the river. The problem is that a no-fly zone is enforced not just by shooting down planes that fly into your area. Oh, thank you for the whale there, Dawn. Appreciate that. It is enforced not simply, I mean, MT knows this, but for the rest of you, it is enforced not simply by shooting down planes that come into an area where you say don't come in. It is also enforced by shooting radar and surface to air missiles, SAMs. So basically, the missiles the Russians would use to shoot down our planes from the ground and the radar systems they would use to guide those missiles. So we would have to also destroy all of the Russian equipment on the ground, not just in Ukraine, by the way, but in Russia too, because I forgot the range here, but the range for the surface to air missiles, I believe, is several hundred miles. One of my military friends told me a couple months ago. So to make it safe, we'd have to take all of that out. That starts to get kind of iffy. Anyway, that's the thing. And by the way, and Russian forces leave or get eliminated. The problem there is we don't have the balls to do that. We don't have the balls to tell the Russians, you've got a deadline or that's it. And I will also say, leave or be eliminated. There's a little bit of a Cuban Missile Crisis problem there where, I think we should stand up to the Russians, but I'm a little more comfortable standing up to the Russians by basically not by me saying you get out or I'm going to attack you, but me more saying, like you said, look, I'm in control of this half of Ukraine. You're not. Great. But if you cross into this half, we're shooting you down. But it's very easy. Just don't cross into this half. So it's putting the onus on Russia. It's not putting the onus on Russia if I say, if you don't leave, I'm going to kill you. That's the onus on me. It's subtle, but I think the second one's a little too in your face for my taste. But I do agree we've got to stand up more, obviously. Yes. Let me see more questions. Let me pull here my Q&A. So again, please do put the Q&A links or go to the Q&A link to on TikTok in my profile. You guys use the comment box at the bottom, and please do keep the gifts coming. Where will you go if TikTok is banned? Honest to God, that's a question. I know. I'm a little worried about that because with the relationship getting worse and worse with China, I could see them try to ban TikTok. Now, I'm not sure how a TikTok ban would work. They would probably try to pass a law. I don't know what they would do. I'm not sure how it would work. Like whether it would, I just don't know. I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I don't practice. So I don't quite know how they would do it. Let's just assume they can do it. It worries me. Yeah, it worries me. It does worry me because, oh no, then I would only go on YouTube. Yeah. Then we'd have to move to YouTube and the Discord. We've got a good amount in Discord, but TikTok is nice for this kind of work because you get a lot of people. I mean, you get the lion's share on TikTok. I'm not going to give you all my numbers, but TikTok could be 20 times the number of people that drop in on TikTok than drop in on YouTube. It's that much more. On the financial side, in terms of the support, it's always better on TikTok because of the volume of people. YouTube is always good, but TikTok is always way more than YouTube. But again, it's because you got 20 times more people, right? So it's not like they're more generous than that, or vice versa. One's more generous than the other. You just have economies of scale with more people. So yeah, it would be a real problem. No, if it looks like it's coming, then I'm just going to I'm on Instagram, but I don't use it too much. But I think, I might have to start doing more on Instagram. I think I would just keep going, and I'm sure we would have an idea that it's coming. Thank you, Timothy. We would have an idea that it's coming, and I probably would say, guys, sign up for my YouTube and my Discord fast. That's all you can do. Which, by the way, you should be signing up for my YouTube and my Discord anyway, just in case. It's not a terrible idea as a backup because you never know. I mean, look, I'm not thrilled, but the issue isn't whether it's right or wrong for the US to do it. I think they can do it. You watch on LinkedIn. I didn't realize. Oh, that's right. LinkedIn does have the replay as well. Yeah. YouTube has a lot of, it's actually my YouTube name is John Aravosis DC because for some crazy name, YouTube, nobody has Aravosis, but YouTube wouldn't let me grab it. And I'm like, okay, really? Really? And then it wouldn't let me grab John Aravosis. I'm like, there is no other John Aravosis, I think, in the world. They wouldn't let me grab it. And now I had to put John Aravosis DC. So that's my YouTube. It's funny. YouTube cracks me up sometimes. I'm like, okay. Well, that's the problem TikTok has some issues though. TikTok does have some issues and there's some, at least the Republicans in Congress are claiming, and they might be telling the truth, that there's another TikTok whistleblower now from the Chinese parent company. Is it ByteDance? I think it's called. A whistleblower from the company saying there's a lot more funny business going on behind the scenes than TikTok or than the Chinese are admitting in terms of access to American data. So my hope is that all the pressure forces somehow TikTok or the parent company to save TikTok. Thank you, by the way, Uncle Crazy Bone, for the gift, to somehow really put protections around TikTok so that it can remain what it is and not be some goofy spy tool or something else, Thank you for the March gift there, L. Do you think the U.S. will end up sanctioning China? If China gives weapons to Ukraine, to Russia, yes. Yes, absolutely. And then China will sanction us and we're going to sanction them. And it's going to be a mess. It's going to be an absolute mess if China gives weapons to Russia. It's going to be bad. I know. I really think it's going to be very bad. So, yeah, no, I think Cliff Wolf is correct. Sorry. Cliff Wolf is saying the reality is that we're enabling Ukraine. We're enabling Ukraine to hemorrhage and its economy to utterly collapse. This war could have ended in August or September, maybe back in June. Biden speaks in forked tongue. The problem is we haven't given them everything they need. You know, thank you, Santa Claus, for the enjoy music gift. That's cute. Let me look here more. Go for another TikTok question. Keep the questions coming, guys. Do you think the EU and Canada will do more without the US? I mean, I'm not sure what that means, though, without the US. I mean, the US is still going to be helping. Actually, the US is still providing the lion's share of the aid, you know? Now, having said that, thank you, Joe Warren, for the hand wave. Having said that, Poland and I believe it's Estonia have been providing the most help per capita, either per capita or per GDP. Basically, meaning based on the size of their country, they're providing the most help because a smaller country, you know, $1 billion from America doesn't mean nearly as much as $1 billion from a country that's only got, you know, 10 million people or something, right? That's got an economy 1/20th of our size or whatever it is. So if you look at it that way, America gave the biggest amount, but Poland and Estonia, at least several months ago, had given the largest based on the size of the countries. And maybe it was Estonia first and then Poland. I think that's what it was. I think this was several months ago, but I doubt it's changed much. So I don't know. I mean, no, the U.S. is helping a lot. It's just we keep pulling our punches because Biden's afraid of pissing off Putin, and we got to stop doing that. You know, how could the complete denuclearization of Russia be done? God knows. God knows. No, I mean, the problem is to denuclearize Russia. You'd have to invade and you'd have to win. You'd have to beat Russia. But it would mean beating them in the sense that we beat Japan and Germany in World War II, where literally their country's invaded and taken over by the good guys. That's not going to happen in Russia. Two or B, whichever I gave first. Russia would have to do what Ukraine did and find some compelling reason to give up its nukes, right? That Russia feels, I mean, I don't know, in the end, you know, look, if Russia wants to join the community of sane nations, if Russia wants to join, you know, the EU and everything else, I mean, it would be interesting to basically have a situation where all of a sudden there is a massive Marshall Plan for Russia to help it develop by joining the West and becoming a civilized country, but it requires Russia to give up their nukes. I mean, that would require a major revolution in Russia, and I don't see it happening. But that's the only way I could see Russia giving up its nuclear weapons, is saying, you know, we realize we've been a horrific dictatorship for 300 years, and we've decided now we want to be a democracy, and the way we're doing it is getting rid of these crazy weapons that have corrupted us and made us belligerent and everything else. But that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. So I don't think there's any way of doing it, unfortunately. I don't know. Did Moldova shoot down any missiles today of Russian missiles flying over? I don't know. I didn't see that. What else we got here? Nope. Yep. Sorry, looking here at what else we got. Could we see Russia using the nuclear power plant in Ukraine as a bargaining chip? Sure. Oh yeah. I think that's what they're doing already anyway. I mean, they're doing it in a slow way, right? By basically, I don't even know what that is. Roshin, I don't know. Are you trying to say, look at Jerry's question, or what are you doing? I don't understand. Are you rooting for the home team? Cardboard drones? What I don't know anything about cardboard drones. Australia had cardboard drones. Anybody? I didn't even hear about it. Don't even know. Huh. No. No idea. Whoop. No idea. Cool. Sounds cool though. What else we got, guys? Sorry, looking here. Do you think Bakhmut will fall to Russia one day? Yeah, it may. It may fall in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, maybe. But as I've said on previous shows, Bakhmut is the city where the big fighting is going on right now. I'd say the biggest fighting right now. And it is where the Russians have been trying to take the town, Ukrainian town, for 9 months now. Bakhmut is all the way over here, more or less, tip of my finger here in eastern Ukraine. Okay. And the Russians have spent a lot of money, a lot of capital. I mean, a lot of equipment A lot of men have died. Thousands of Russian men have died trying to take that town. And it's a completely irrelevant town for Russia to take, in the sense that, sure, eventually they're going to want to take Bakhmut if they want to take that whole eastern region of Ukraine. Bakhmut's a part of it. I guess you don't want Berlin sitting in the, West Berlin sitting in the middle of Russian territory, so to speak. But otherwise, and I went through a very long explanation yesterday, taking over Bakhmut helps the Russians zero in terms of their next steps. It does not help them. They have to go from Bakhmut basically to where is this? I'm going to find my closed pen. So Bakhmut's more or less here. They want to take Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, I think, that they need to take next. They would either have to take the highway west and north, or the highway that goes northwest, basically, to get there. Very long story, but both suck. Both absolutely suck. The land is already wet. The Russians couldn't use the land to basically, traverse to get there. Thank you, Newton, for the coral, meaning all their tanks would have to stay on the road. To stay on the road, they'd have to go single file. To go single file, they're just going to get shot at by the Ukrainians. It's like, imagine a duck or whatever coming out of a hole. Each one comes out and you shoot them. It's horrible for the Russians to do this. They can't go on the grass or on the field because it's wet. And if they go in the field, they're going to get stuck. So terrible time to go. The Russians don't have the men or the equipment to do it. What I'd heard was those cities are also, they're not just northwest. Kramatorsk? Kramatorsk is also like up higher altitude. So it's up a hill. So the Russians are climbing a hill and being shot at down by the Ukrainians, which also just helps the Ukrainians a lot right there too, right? There's more to it as well, but basically taking Bakhmut does not help the Russians at all to take Kramatorsk or Sloviansk. And the Russians will still have to take Kramatorsk and Sloviansk next. So basically, the Russians are nuts with this. Let me put it this way, okay? You're Russian. You absolutely need to take, and Kramatorsk is on my map right here. You absolutely have to take Kramatorsk and this town to the north of it called Sloviansk. You absolutely need those towns. They're key to capturing this region that is probably top of the list for Putin to capture now. Do you attack attack somewhere that is a stepping stone to attacking those towns? Or B, do you attack a city like Bakhmut that is not a stepping stone to taking those towns, right? It's like saying, I'm trying to think of an example, but it's like saying, I'm driving cross country from Washington, D.C. to California. Washington, D.C. is on the Atlantic, California is on the Pacific. And do you want to drive this way to California? Or would you rather drive, I'm trying to get in the map here, would you rather drive this way to California? Well, I'm thinking this way is probably the wrong way. They went the wrong way, in essence. Taking over Bakhmut is not on the way to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk because the Russians can't attack from there. They'll get killed. So why did they do it? They did it for pride. It was the Wagner group that initially wanted to take the town because I think they wanted to take the town because they wanted to prove that we're the Russian mercenaries and we're better than the Ministry of Defense and we're better than Russian troops because we want to make lots of money. And then the war didn't go so well for Bakhmut. So Wagner kept throwing more and more men in. And now the Russians are in a situation where they feel like they don't have a choice but to win Bakhmut because they've talked about it so much, it's going to be embarrassing. B, they need a win somewhere because they haven't had a win in months, and they want Bakhmut to be it, which again is stupid, but nonetheless, for morale, it's not a terrible idea. And I'm trying to think. I had a C here, but I can't think of. C is a very funny C. C, the third reason why the Russians are probably attacking nonstop for 9 months now, Bakhmut, but the last couple months is because Putin is pissed at the. Hello, dog. What you doing? Putin is pissed at Prigozhin, who is the billionaire oligarch who runs the Wagner Group. The Ministry of Defense is pissed at him. He's done a lot of stuff that's basically ego, hubris, and it looks like he's challenging Putin as well. So they're now taking his men and just continuing to throw his best men in the battle in Bakhmut. And Prigozhin, the rich guy who runs it, has basically accused the Ministry of Defense of intentionally throwing his best men now into Bakhmut so they'll get killed, so that all of his men get killed and he doesn't have an army anymore. Thank you, Jedamom, for the galaxy. So that's the other reason the Russians keep fighting there, is just they're trying to get all of Prigozhin's guys killed. It's insane. I mean, it's just, and you wonder why the Russians aren't winning, meaning Russia should have won in 10 days. We all thought Russia was going to win in 10 days. They thought they were going to win, but so did us. They're not, I know, Sash. I know. We'll help you in a minute. My dog knows 7:30 is coming, and at 7:30, I brush her teeth with her little peanut butter toothpaste that she likes. Russian military, I think it's around 1 million. It's around 1 million, but keep in mind, typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, but typically like a third of that are fighting forces. So it's not like they have 1 million men with guns in their hands waiting to fight. 200,000 have already been injured or killed. I mean, that's a lot, right? So it's not like the Russians really don't have, at this point, and we went through a long discussion on this yesterday, a lot of the experts are saying that the Russians don't appear to really have any men left or enough equipment left to do any big offensives. In other words, to do any big attacks in the next few months, because they already did it. They already did their big attack. And they had done a big mobilization last September. Remember, they got 200,000 or 300,000 new men, didn't train them, just threw them at the front. And they're already, either they're dead, they're injured, or they're already being used. So it appears that this was the big Russian offensive and didn't go anywhere. No, it's crazy. We can do a few more questions if you guys got them. Up to you. Do they have enough for defense? I mean, isn't that an interesting question? Sorry, Brave Cobra is asking on Twitch, do the Russians have enough troops for defense? Oh, Jesus. Hey, stop that. Quiet. That's my dog wanting to either she knows she thinks the neighbor is in the hall, or the other neighbors. One neighbor has a dog she likes, and the other one, she just likes the neighbor. So that's her voice. Quiet. That's her voice she makes when she smells the neighbor in the hall. Do they have enough for defenses? I don't know. Interestingly enough, I've not seen. Oh, this is my Greece Starbucks mug from Greece, so from Athens that I got. So it's okay. I don't like this version of Starbucks mugs. I never really liked. I find them kind of ugly, but nonetheless, my family's Greek, so I do like my Greek Starbucks mug. I haven't seen anybody write an article about where Russia stands in defending itself. And by the way, defending itself meaning a two-front war. What if war with China breaks out for whatever reason? What if Georgia wants its land? Russia occupies 20% of Georgia, the former Soviet state of Georgia. What if they try to get their land back? What if America decides to start playing games in the Russian Far East and war breaks out there? What's Russia going to do? What if China, actually Japan's a big one too. What if Japan decides it's finally time to take its islands back, right? Russia basically stole, after World War II, Russia stole half of Europe. Okay, Alan, I will get to yours next. Russia stole half of Europe and occupied it and installed communist dictatorships. They did the same thing to Japan. They stole what I always learned as the Kuril Islands, but I didn't realize that's the Russian name. I believe the Japanese call them the Northern Islands, but some islands in the north of Japan, the Russians stole, and the Japanese want them back. I mean, putting aside the fact that I'm sure the U.S. has told Japan, please don't do this right now. But if you were Japan, now is not right. They're technically still at war, aren't they? Yeah, Japan and Russia. Yeah, they're still technically at war. If you're Japan, now is the best time you've ever had at getting your islands back, because the Russian military is busy 11 time zones away. Russia has 11 time zones. It's on the other I think it's 11. It's a crazy number. Hey, Google, how many time zones does Russia have? 11 time zones. 11. There you go. Yep. 11 time zones. So imagine 11 times. This guy is paid by governments. This guy is not paid by governments. This guy is paid by you. Give me gifts. Give me gifts. I always like when the trolls come and bring up the money thing because I'm like, fine, let's use this as a fundraising opportunity. Nobody pays me. I do this full time. I decided a year ago to do this full time. I'm not rich, but I figured I've always worked on my own. I've done internet and politics for 1995 is when I started working with the internet and politics, almost 30 years now, and thought, you know what? Let's try it with the Ukraine thing, and it's been working. But quite literally, it's you guys. I know I should tell your guys Google Homes to like. I should tell Alexa, send John lots of cool gifts. Thank you for the Timothy for the butterflies and Jay Ticker for the cap. Paid for by viewers like you. Exactly. What else we got here? Thank you, guys. I see the TikTokers rolling in. Thank you. Alan, what do we think about Iran now supplying ammunition and shells? I did not see the latest on Iran. I mean, I don't know what the hell we can do about Iran or what we are doing, to be honest. Thank you, Cheleb, for the hands there. And Dawn for the coral. I didn't see the article on it, but I have no idea what ability we have to influence anything with Iran at this point because they're already under sanction. The Israelis seem to have a much better ability than we have to bomb Iran, and I'm sure they're gonna, but the Israelis are obviously more preoccupied with Iran's nuclear development, but I'm convinced the Israelis are going to bomb them at some point. They are. I really wish we would do. I mean, honestly, the Iran thing, the only thing is, as I said, I would really have to get up to speed on what the U.S. options are in Iran because my hawkish side really wants to bomb Iran. I mean, in terms of saying, if they are going to do this, if they are going to literally join the war and give Russia weapons to kill Ukrainians, then we are going to blow up their military facilities. The problem is, I'm guessing from a U.S. perspective, first of all, put aside the politics of whether the American people would like that, right? Because potentially it could get us into a war. And Americans lately have been kind of getting tired of wars like Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you, Carlos. But with Iran, you also have the danger of if we were to bomb Iran's oil fields, Iran would just go and start bombing the Gulf, right? Right? I mean, put mines in the Gulf, MINE. So I think my guess is we're probably being careful with Iran because we don't want them to screw with the world's oil supply is my guess. That's my guess. But boy, I would have no problem with bombing the Iranian military. But again, what I mean is I have no moral problem with bombing the Iranian military to make a statement and to tell them to stop screwing around in Ukraine. But you always have to consider that stuff in terms of A, will it work? Otherwise, will it work in some way? Will it achieve some goal we want to achieve beyond just feeling good, right? That's the first question. And what are the negatives that could come of it, right? Like I said, could Iran turn around and then decide to blow up oil tankers going through the Straits of Hormuz and, all that kind of stuff, right? Where a lot of the world's oil is coming from. You have to consider that stuff, even if it were a good idea in the sense of, yeah, maybe we could get Iran to stop, but would it then cut off the world's oil supply and we have a massive depression worldwide? That would not be nice. Anyway, stuff I consider myself very in the middle. I consider myself very analytical in that kind of stuff. I tend to be hawkish on defense stuff, but I also try to be smart about it. You just don't do stuff because it feels good. You shouldn't be afraid, but you don't just do stuff because it feels good. It's got to be effective. It's got to be effective. Is it going to and the benefits have to outweigh the risks. The positive has to outweigh the negative. Beep, 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 beep. What else? Almost done here, guys. We're at after the hour. I'm just looking to see if there's a few more questions, and then we'll go. As I said, the news went late, so I wanted to make sure I gave you guys enough time for questions tonight. Who pays more per view? I don't know. That's a good question. TikTok or Ukraine? TikTok or YouTube? I don't know. Neither is great. I mean, I know on YouTube, for example, just for fun. I mean, since somebody asked, YouTube, and it probably depends, but YouTube it could take 1 million views on YouTube to get $1,000. Thank you, PS Pam Pam for the confetti. So it could take you a million views to get $1,000. $1,000 is great, but 1 million views on YouTube is a lot of freaking views, right? TikTok, I have no idea. I don't even remember what the calculation is there. It ain't great. The money on TikTok, for me at least, comes from your guys' gifts. It does not come from just the sort of the fund TikTok has set up for numbers of views you get and everything else. Nah, I don't even know. I mean, I don't like talking money figures, but it ain't anything. It's not anything particularly good. Thank you, Cheryl. I would say it's insignificant. I'd still happy to take it, but it's insignificant. Yeah. And they take a bigger cut too, right? YouTube, bingo. YouTube takes like 70%. YouTube takes like 30%. TikTok takes 50%, which is, thank you, Cheleb, for the corgi. But, ask away. Yeah. Too screwed for us. Can we ask questions? Ask away. Thank you, Slender Monk. Yeah, still trying to, I would say in the last month, I may have finally broken even in the last month. I'm not sure. I may have, because I was not breaking even in the last 12 months. I was spending more money than I was making. But I've typically done that on all the issues I've worked on in the past. I typically jump in and start doing it, even if it's not paying. But, as you get older, those of us who are older out there will appreciate this. You start worrying about retirement. Thank you, Tikidia, for the butterflies. You start getting more worried as retirement comes, and you realize you can't just break even. Especially in America, it's not like any of us have great retirement plans with our businesses or anything. You need to make more money so that you can save for retirement too. Anyway, whatever. Money, bleh, what do you do? What else we got? I love that when TikTok, they're doing the 90-minute thing again. Great job. You've gone live for 90 minutes. Don't forget to take a break. It's so weird, but cute. Good night, Paul C. I know when I retire, I hope to God I can retire. Today's missile attack. Yes, we talked at the beginning about the missile attack. The Russians threw like 81 missiles at Ukraine, including 6 hypersonic missiles. Thank you, Shore Girl. Not Shore Girl, but not thank you. But I live in Washington, D.C. That is where I am broadcasting from. Exactly. I'm a millennial. What is retirement? Exactly. Oh, now the dog is. She's got her squeaky toy. You may not be able to hear with this mic. Oh, she stopped. Oh, she stopped. I don't know if you can hear it though, because this mic is meant to sort of stop noises from coming in from the sides. It's a very nice mic. It's the Michael Jackson mic. Also the mic Joe Rogan uses. Thank you for the trophy there, Hazel. That was very generous of you. Thank you. That's a really interesting question. Sonia is saying on TikTok, do you believe Russia's nuclear weapons are working? That's a really interesting question because you can hear her squeaking. Okay. Because, you don't know. There is upkeep that is needed on nuclear weapons, right? And they're electronics and things can corrode, right? I think of my fridge, right? My motherboard on my fridge died like 10 years ago. It actually has a motherboard. So the system to control the nukes can break. Who knows if they work? What was interesting is I saw one analysis that said that, well, what I've been saying is we have to assume the Russian missiles work, right? We can't just say, well, maybe they don't work, so let's not worry about their nukes. We just have to assume that the Russian nukes work. There's no choice, right? Because it's too risky to not assume that Russia is a nuclear power still. But from Russia's, and this was somebody else had written this, I forgot where, and I read it and I went, that's really interesting. From Russia's position, are you willing to get into a nuclear war, right? Or at least start using your nukes? What if, for example, the battlefield nuke? What if Russia uses its battlefield nuke and it doesn't work? I mean, what does that do then? So in other words, Russia invades Ukraine, okay? And shortly after Russia invades, we start to see that thank you, Nancy, for that Russia has a lot of problems with its military we didn't realize, right? A lot of its vehicles have wheels they got from China that are literally falling apart. The wheels are falling off their trucks because apparently they bought bad wheels and they maintained them poorly. There was a wonderful thread by the Trent Talenko, whoever on Twitter, a former military logistics guy, talking about how, and I never knew this, but I guess it makes sense. If you've got vehicles sitting out, waiting for war, and a lot of them are outdoors, and they're sitting on like, a dry part of the country on a big airfield or something, they're sitting in the sun. Wheels are made of rubber, plastic in essence. That plastic is sitting in the sun. What happens when plastic sits in the sun, right? After a very long time, plastic changes and becomes hard and breaks. Well, thank you, Bonnie, for that. What you're supposed to do apparently is you're supposed to like rotate the tires so that it's, for example, this is, or my lip bulb, this is the car. If the sun is always coming this way every day, these two wheels are always getting sun. These two wheels are never getting sun. You're just supposed to rotate the car every once in a while, or rotate the wheels so that everything is slowly getting weathered by the sun equally, and then you know how it's going. Well, the Russians didn't do any of this. So their wheels were literally falling off their vehicles. We found that their missiles, remember at one point, it said like 60% of the Russian missiles were basically not working. Now, whether not working meant they died on the launch pad, whether it meant they went and then just veered off, but in some way, 60% of the missile attacks were just a disaster, right? Really, Brave Cobra says on Twitch, you'd think the concept of the wheel would have been figured out by now, but that's the point. So my point here is Russia started the war as the world's second largest military. Now Russia is a country that has nukes, a joke. Otherwise, they're a joke militarily, but they still have such a large military in terms of weapons that they can still cause trouble, as we're seeing in Ukraine. They can still cause a lot of devastation, but their military is a joke. And the fact that if Ukraine can keep sending drones, the other day Ukraine sent like 12 drones into 10 or 12 drones, 12, I believe it was, at 12 different Russian cities overnight. And most of the drones didn't seem to do anything, but we're not sure whether it was whether they were testing. So whether the Ukrainians were basically testing to see, can we pull off a massive drone attack where we go after 10, 20, 30 Russian cities all on the same night? And we found that the Ukrainians could at least do it with 12 drones. They were able to get them across the border. We now know the Russian border security sucks too. And the Russian sort of anti-aircraft systems suck as well. And the Russian Air Force, my guess is our Air Force people probably knew this anyway, but my God, the Russians can't even beat the Ukrainians in the air. This is Ukraine and Russia. I mean, no offense to Ukraine, but it's not like they're taking on the Poles or something. It's Ukraine. I mean, no one expected Ukraine to be like that big of a military, right? So with all of that in mind, imagine that Russia then goes ahead and so now Russia, by getting into this war, Russia shows the world that their military sucks. At the very least, isn't anything like we thought it was. The Russian military is way worse than we thought. If Russia then decides to use its tactical nukes and the nukes don't work, then it means Russia is a lesser military power whose nukes don't really work. And then what happens? Then somebody like China or somebody else, who knows? Maybe China would go in and take some land in the east. Maybe the Japanese would take their islands back. Maybe Georgia would take its land back. Some of the other countries too. I mean, it's a dangerous prospect for Russia also in terms of using their own nukes, because it would be dangerous for them to send the message to the rest of the world that, oh, Russia isn't really a nuclear power. Oh, well, because let's face it, the only reason we're tolerating a lot of what Russia is doing is because they are a nuclear power. If they weren't a nuclear power, Anyway, yes, we will, Ryan, don't worry. Let me finish now then. Okay, let me finish. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. This has been enough here. All right, let me do a quick summary of the stories we covered today. Let me get my top story. I will do a quick summary and then we are done, folks. All right. All right. 1 second here. Here we go. So, thank you, Graham, for the super sticker. So, Russia targeted power infrastructure in 10 Ukrainian regions with 81 missiles, including 6 hypersonic missiles. And I may not have said earlier, the reason they use the hypersonic missiles is because they go so fast that they can't be shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. The Russian attack also took down the electricity that was powering the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which is very dangerous. But fortunately, the power was turned back on. Georgia, former Soviet Republic of Georgia, the third day of mass protest against a Russian-style law to require local organizations to register as foreign agents if they receive more than 20% of their funds from abroad. Third day of protest against that. The Georgian government claims it is withdrawing the law and is meeting tomorrow. The parliament meets tomorrow at noon to vote on withdrawing the law, but there still is concern that the Georgian government is going to basically try to bring it up again several months from now. Ukrainian president's office says Ukraine may receive security guarantees at the next NATO summit. I explained to you why I don't think those security guarantees are worth anything. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate warned today of a possible Russian false flag operation along the Ukrainian-Belarusian border. I skipped my story on the JDAM update. I will give you that tomorrow. Polish MiGs. Poland. So basically what happened with Poland is Poland said, the Polish president, that he is ready to provide a number of MiG fighter jets. I believe it's 21 or so. It was around a couple dozen MiG fighter jets to Ukraine. But if you dig through all the stories and dig through all the quotes, it seems what he's saying is he's ready to do it. In other words, I want to do it. I really want to do it. I'll do it, but not I am doing it. In other words, I think he's trying to get NATO permission, and I don't think NATO is going to give him permission. He doesn't have to get NATO permission, but he has to get NATO permission. I explained it earlier, but meaning to be a good player in NATO, you got to get NATO permission, even though legally he doesn't have to. Poland's defense minister confirmed today that 10 more Leopard 2 tanks have been delivered to Ukraine. And then I've got another story, which I'll tell you tomorrow, about one other reason why the Russian military is so bad at all of this. And it's another one that'll kind of make you laugh. But I'm calling it tank ballet, but we'll talk about it tomorrow because, as we said, we got through so much news today that I skipped it. Thank you, Manda Bear. Yeah, this was long today. Wow. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out, though. It's funny. I think back to the beginning, and it was hard to keep 1,000 people on TikTok, for the period. And now we've got you guys for an hour and 40 minutes. So thank you for hanging out. And especially now that the trolls are gone, we've still got 1,000 people on TikTok, which is cool. And we love the rest of you as well. All right, guys, I'm going to go. As I said, I'm not going to do Discord tonight because it's an hour and 45 minutes. We will be back tomorrow. Actually, I forgot to mention, since it's Thursday, Saturday morning, thank you for the rose on TikTok. Saturday morning, I will do my coffee talk, which is my hangout with the TikTok subscribers at 10 a.m. Eastern time, Saturday morning. So come and hang for that. That's for the paid subscribers on TikTok. And Sunday morning at, no, not Sunday morning. Once a month we do the Discord hangout. And I'm exploring possibly, I haven't decided yet, YouTube. Thank you for the Plofic. YouTube also has a function now of having paid subscribers, but I just didn't want to get it's confused because, I'm trying to make a living doing this, right? And of course, nothing pays enough, but in the aggregate, it's not bad. So like I've got my Patreon, by the way, do go check out my links, aravosis.com, or you guys go to the link in my profile and you'll find my Patreon, all sorts of other stuff. But so I'm making some money from Patreon. I'm making money from my gifts on TikTok. I'm making money from my gifts on YouTube, right? I'm making money from the auctions we've got on Discord. I'm making money from my store. Do check out the store.aravosis.com. But it's a lot of different things. And one of the things TikTok has, I found out the other day, I'm now eligible for it, is turning on the subscribers where you're a paid subscriber once a month. But I wasn't sure what to provide because it's getting very confusing. One of the functions, though, is you can have private chats or private video for your subscribers. So I was starting to think that I could potentially turn the YouTube and do sort of a similar thing to TikTok and possibly turn basically, because remember, I pissed off one of you. I think it might have been Jingle Bells over on Twitch because I was doing it on TikTok, but there was no way on YouTube. I could do both. So I'm wondering, let me see, but I'm wondering if the TikTokers would even care. I mean, in doing like a subscription thing once a month. And I also, you pay once a month, but when I do my Saturday TikTok, I turn you guys on as well. So I have both of you on at the same, and it's a hangout. I mean, we hang out. We just hang out and have fun. So we'll have to see. I may do it. My taxes are a nightmare. Yes. Every year my taxes are a nightmare. It's not fun. Thank you for the hat, Code Guru. It's not fun at all because this has been 25 years now. I've got to go through, other than when I was at the UN, I've got to go through and compile all the different, one year, although I got the best of them, the DC tax people, because I live in Washington, DC, sent me this obnoxious note that made no sense. And they were like, we would like you to, this is after I filed my taxes. We would like you to send us the following documentation. And they wanted all the W-2 forms, which basically are the forms in America. Thank you, Uncle Crazy Bum. They're the forms that you get. I think it's the W-2s, whatever the hell they are. I don't know. They're the forms you get, or 1099s. They're the forms you get at the end of the year that tell you how much money these people gave you. Now, if you're in a regular job, it's easy. If you're like me, you've got 10 different or 20 different, that year I had 20 different sources of income. Well, a lot of them didn't have to give me this form because you didn't have to provide the form if you made less than $20,000. So I had like Patreon. I didn't make $20,000 in Patreon. So Patreon didn't give me the form. So the DC government writes me and goes, it was crazy. DC government writes me and goes, we would like you to send us all the documentation proving your sources of income. And I'm looking at this going, wait, you're not asking me for proof of my deductions. That would make sense, right? Saying, hey, are you claiming things like, are you claiming a deduction on your taxes that isn't valid? I could see them asking that, but we want you to provide us proof of your income. And I'm thinking, because you think I'm declaring too much income, like I want to pay more. And I'm saying, hey, I really made 50,000. Let's tell them I made 70,000, right? I mean, like, what do they think? It doesn't. And if I lied, let's pretend I told DC I made 50,000. If I really made 70, if I was going to lie, why would I tell the truth if they said, prove you made 50? I'd be like, okay, I'll give you the receipts for just 50,000. I mean, if I'm already a tax thief. So I went through, and the DC government left me alone. I went through and I wrote like, I had to go to my bank accounts, pull all of this stuff. I prepared a 20-page document for this guy and a 3-page letter with 20 different points of each source of income, the bank statement proving it. I mean, it was hilarious. It was a pain in the ass. It took me a whole weekend, but they left me the F alone after I did that because I was like, fine. But in any case, it's not fun. I don't know what they were. I don't know. Literally, it was as if they were asking me. The recap's done. We're done with the recap. It was as if they were asking me, you're lying and telling us you made too much money. Like I wanted to pay extra taxes. In any case, it's not fun when you work on your own. I do it by myself. I do it by myself, and I've gotten good at it now because I got sick and tired of when you work on your own, even if you don't work on your own. Over the years, accountants suck. They were like Murphy Brown's secretary. Every accountant I ever had dropped the ball. They were good at the beginning. They wouldn't get back to you. And I'm talking wouldn't get back to you about anything. Halfway through the year when nothing's going on and you're asking questions, they wouldn't get back to you. And they wouldn't do jack anything to lower your taxes. And what I mean by that is I was like, I am conservative with my taxes. I will not play games with my taxes. I've always been very risk averse with my taxes, right? So I'm not like, hey, that might be illegal, but you know what? Maybe it's not. That ain't me. But I will absolutely take every loophole I can get. And I told them, let me know, blah, blah, blah. They never did. I had to go on my own and figure stuff out. I mean, when I was at the UN, the UN's ridiculous. The UN's a whole other crazy, ridiculous thing. But I found all sorts of loopholes when I was at the UN that I found on my own, and they were legal. I don't even want to go through this stuff publicly to explain it, but it pisses me off because it really can change. It can really change the amount of money, how much money you can put away in retirement. I found other ways of doing it that were totally legal, and I was able to put more money away. I mean, more money when I had more money away. The accountant never did it. And I think one of them once, actually one I'll tell you, SEP IRA, self-employed. My accountant had me using a SEP IRA. And at this point, solo 401ks, very complicated stuff here, but 401ks for people who work on their own became legal. My accountant never told me. A SEP IRA, I could put like 10,000, let's pretend, now mind you, part of the problem with American retirement is you got to have the money to actually put away, right? So who's got, $50,000 to put away? But in principle here, a SEP IRA might let you put $10,000 away a year at a certain income. If you've got a solo 401k, maybe you could put $30,000 away that year. I did have a couple good years. My accountant never bothered telling me, if you created this other vehicle, you could put a lot more money away for retirement. They just never freaking told me. I have found it, and I'm sorry, I know some of you are accountants. These guys just don't go. The ones that I've had, and I've had 3 or 4 of them, and I finally gave up and I started doing it myself. I get the tax software. I went and literally took my tax returns because I had to do the returns, and I typed in my returns. In other words, I took last year's return. This is now 5-6 years ago. Took the year before's return and entered it in manually into the tax software. Okay. I bought the previous year's tax software, TurboTax, entered it in until the numbers matched. So I knew I got it right. And then used and that was an incredible education for me to actually see the income and go, oh, okay. Right. And it made it much more helpful for me now in future years to appreciate and to start understanding even the money that's put away. I mean, but our tax system sucks here. It's too hard. It's just too hard. But again, too many of the accountants I had, they just wouldn't even, okay, actually one example, how much money you put into your retirement, it won't just affect your taxes. It'll also affect, obviously it affects your taxes, but it also affects benefits you get. If you put more money into your, if you sort of eke out more money that you're able to put away into your retirement, it lowers your income, but you can get it down to a certain point where all of a sudden your Obamacare premiums are getting reimbursed. My accountants never told me this, right? So I was putting the amount of money that I thought I could afford. But if I was able to find like another $3,000, for example, maybe I'd get $8,000 back because I could get Obamacare subsidies. The accountants never even, I realized that on my own, that like all these kind of crazy things like that, where if you know your own tax, again, you've got to do the legal, me, always do legal stuff. I will not do anything fishy, but just the amount you put into your retirement plan. Now you will know this too. If you ever deal with seniors have to worry about income and how much they get and whether it affects the, how much of Social Security or Medicare they pay taxes on and all that kind of stuff. That's another example where basically you have to kind of be careful. In any case, it's very frustrating. So yeah, I would say, and I mean, I hate money numbers, but I'm good with math. I am good with math. So I just keep track of everything. And if I ever get audited, I'm doing my due diligence of everything I can, that's all you can do. And once it was funny, before COVID, I called the IRS because I had a question on something. And I think maybe I even screwed something. I did screw something up at one point. One year I'm working on my own. I forgot to report some of my income because literally my Excel spreadsheet, I was copying stuff and one of the zeros didn't copy. Oh, and I freaked out. I was like, oh my God. Because I'm thinking it's 3 months after taxes are paid. And I found out I actually made, X amount of money more than I thought. I called the IRS and the woman's like, just submit an amended return. I'm thinking, I was like, yeah, but I don't want to get into trouble. She's like, you're not going to get into trouble. I mean, I'm turning red laughing. A couple times that I've talked to the Internal Revenue Service, they've been very nice. They were really nice. And actually one guy in particular, he was like, we're not after people like you. We're literally after people who are trying to cheat. If you screw up, you might pay a penalty, but the penalty is not going to kill you. But if you screw up and you're clearly not trying to cheat, you're not going to have a problem. So yeah, I've also learned how to amend my taxes. I mean, I don't like it, but what do you do? What do you do? Yeah. Oh, there's another thing Drake is saying about correcting his accountants and stuff. I also was correct. I was also finding stuff wrong that they did. And finally, at first, years ago, I used to just accept what they did. Then I started going through several years ago and I was like looking and going, one of them, I remember one year, one of them declared that I made more money than I did. And I think that's when I got rid of her. I was pissed. I was like, No. How did you get me making over $10,000? Oh, I'm sorry. What do you mean you're sorry? Like, had I not seen that, it would have been another $3,000 that I was paying. I mean, crazy stuff like that. That's just ridiculous. It just never, never, ever. I'm still terrified of the IRS, but never, ever, ever, ever will I have somebody do unless I have to. But I work on my own. The hardest part is all these sources of income. Otherwise, you know, I keep track of the stuff, but it does take me a long weekend every time. This is also, by the way, why when you guys do the contributions, I've been telling you, like with Vlad and stuff, that I just am not taking the money myself. When we do all the contributions for Ukraine, all the charity we do for Ukraine just goes to Vlad directly, because I finally figured out for my taxes how it would work, but it's so freaking complicated. I said, forget it. So you got to sort of do things like that. You've got to be really careful. Anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to go. This is what we could have done this on Discord. This is what we do on Discord after the show. Usually we go when we hang out and have conversations like this. So, all right, let me go, guys. I will see you tomorrow. So yeah, Saturday morning, we'll do a TikTok subscriber payment only, paid subscriber only thing at 10 a.m. And otherwise I'll see you guys tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Okay. All right, let's go. See ya. That was long.